In this video, we're going to take a look at factoring a trinomial, and in this case we have three different examples that we're going to look at. So let's start with letter A, and we'll kind of talk through the process here. So first off, we need to make sure that this is a trinomial, meaning that there are three terms here. Secondly, let's make sure that they are in descending exponential order. So we have the x squared, and then the x, and then no x. So now that we have that all in place, what I want to do is take and multiply the 2x squared and the 10, positive 10, to where we get 20x squared. And I'm going to make a little t-chart, and then I'm going to take this middle term and have a positive 9x. And so what we're going to look for are factors of 20x squared that will give us a sum of 9x. So factors are things that we multiply together, and a sum are the things that we add together. So for example, we could try like 2x and 10x. When we add those together, we get 12x. Okay, so that one doesn't work because we're looking again for the sum of 9x. Let's look at 4x and 5x. Well, when we add those together, we get 9x. And when we multiply them together, we get 20x squared. Cool, so we found them. So now what we need to do is take and replace our middle term, that 9x, with the plus 4x plus 5x. And then we have that plus 10. So we're just replacing the 9x and just splitting it apart. What this does is it gives us the ability to then factor by grouping. If you're not sure about how to do that, well, I have another video up that you can look at. So we look here though at 2x squared and plus 4x, and the greatest common factor is 2x, and we're left with x plus 2. In this second one, the greatest common factor is 5, and we're left with x plus 2. And then we look here, and we notice that we have x plus 2 as a common factor, so we say x plus 2, and we're left with 2x plus 5. And then we look and we say, okay, are there any other greatest common factors in either of these separately? And there are not any, so we are done. So we have our two factors of x plus 2 and 2x plus 5. All right, let's take a look at this next one. Again, let's look first to make sure it's a trinomial, make sure it's in descending exponential order, which it is. And now what we'll do is we'll take and we will multiply, multiply 15x squared and 2, and we get 30, positive 30x squared. And then this middle term is a negative 13x. So we're looking for factors of 30x squared that will give us a sum of negative 13x. So now we can kind of think through it, and maybe we're thinking like 15 and 2. And notice how this is positive and our sum is negative, which means that if, for example, say this was a negative 15x, it would equal a negative 13x, but it doesn't equal a positive 30x squared. It would be negative. So therefore that doesn't work, even though it adds up. Because when you multiply them together, you're not getting your positive 30x squared. So let's keep thinking. We could try 6x, 5x, and then in that case, they both have to be negative because a negative times a negative. But that only gives us negative 11x. So let's keep thinking, oh, what about negative 10x and negative 3x? When we add those together, we get negative 13x, and when we multiply them, we get a positive 30x squared. So let's go ahead and come back and replace that negative 13x with a negative 10x and a negative 3x. And then we have that plus 2 at the end. Okay, again, we're going to factor by grouping. We can pull out a 5x in that first set. We're left with 3x minus 2. And in this second set, we see that we want to try and get something similar to this positive 3x minus 2. So if we have a negative 3x plus 2, we can pull out our greatest common factor of a negative 1. And so we get 3x minus 2. So then we can see that those are the same. We pull out our greatest common factor. And then we say, okay, what factors do we have left in those two? And we have 5x minus 1. Again, we look for our greatest common factor in the 3x plus 2. There isn't one. We look for greatest common factor in the 5x minus 1. There isn't one. And since that is true, then we are done. So those are our two factors of 3x plus 2 and 5x minus 1. All right, this last one is a little bit bigger in terms of our numbers. We're going to multiply these. And we see that we don't have a greatest common factor to shrink this down. So when we take 35 and multiply it by 45, we get 1,575 r squared, and it's positive, and a negative 88 r for the middle term. So to really look at this, it would probably be most beneficial to just break this down into its prime factorization, and then we can take those prime factors and start looking at how we can group them together. All right, so we have 7, 5, 5, 3, 3. So maybe we want to try 3 times 3 is 9, and so 25 times 7 would be 175, which we see, okay, that's way too big, no matter what we did with it. And since our sum is negative, okay, and our factors, the product is positive, we have to have either both negative or both positive. Since it's negative, we have to have both negative. Okay, so that doesn't work. Let's try, let's say 9 and 7 is 63, negative 63. And then 25, negative 25. And then when we look, we see, oh, it equals negative 88r, which is what we're looking for, okay? So now we can come back in here, r squared minus 63r minus 25r plus 45. And this whole process, it's really helpful to know your multiplication facts, because it just makes this whole process go a little bit faster. All right, so now let's take a look at this first set. We see that we have a 7r as our greatest common factor. We're left with 5r minus 9. And in this second set, we see that we have this r term here, and it's negative. We want to get it positive, looking back at this one. So we're going to try and pull out a negative 5, just a negative 5. So now we're left with 5r minus 9. And we see, okay, our greatest common factors are out. These two look the same, 5r minus 9, and then we're left with 7r minus 5. And we look, we don't have any greatest common factors, so we are done. So our factors there are 5r minus 9 and 7r minus 5. So hopefully this helped you in factoring trinomials. If it did, go ahead and like this video, and you can take a look at some of the other videos that I have posted on my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.